All right, we are live. Welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Trey. Thank you so much for taking the time to join the live stream, listen to the podcast, catch the replay on YouTube, no matter how you're consuming it. We appreciate you for being here. If you have a question for the gentleman with me today, please drop them in the comments. We'll run through some of those. Go ahead and like the stream and subscribe to the channel if you don't already. But let's dive right into it. We've got a very special guest on the show today, a man who needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. He spent over 20 years as a head coach in the NFL, took over as commissioner last season and helped right the ship in 2024 to finish off the Arena Football season. He's the commissioner of Arena Football 1. He's the one and only Jeff Fisher. Coach Fisher, thank you so much for joining the show today. How are we doing?
I'm doing great, Trey, and thank you for what you do, especially as it relates to Arena Football and your commitment and passion. I'm doing well, and thanks for having me.
Well, I'm happy to play a small part in this community, and like we talked about just before we went live here, it is about the community around Arena Football that makes it so special. So, the fact that we're able to do an event like this, where different independent streamers and content creators are able to contribute to that community, is really awesome. So, it's been a long road and a short couple of months to get to this point with teams getting finalized, schedules getting worked out. How does it feel to finally have some of those things checked off of the old to-do list and you're like, okay, it's on to the next?
Well, it does feel good, but the important thing you said, it's on to the next, and there's a lot of next. No stopping here. There's never enough time in the day or in the week, or you look at the big picture calendar and you're kind of there's a lot to do yet, but to think of how far we've come and the people that have put us in this position, and I'm speaking specifically about the administrative staff, and I know we'll do it, but the number of decades of experience in arena football is mind-boggling when you think about it. With between the four people that we have our staff, and it's like anything in life, you want to go out and you want to be the best. Well, you can't do it by yourself. You got to surround yourself with the best people, and that's what we've done. And I'm honored just to be a part of their group. And I tell the story often, Trey, but the Cats went to Billings, and I have a place in Montana. I have a lot of friends in Montana. I had friends come down to the game. It was their first arena football game that they've ever attended, and they're still talking about it. a cool thing, and I did I was blessed to do a lot of great things and a long career, and all the experience. But it comes down to that Brown thing, and it's a great game. And in the last year and a half, I've realized how exciting and how special the arena game is in itself, and to know that we're surrounded with such good people. It's something to look forward to, especially as we move quickly into the 25 season and beyond.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about that team of people you got working with you at Arena Football 1. We've got Jerry Kurz, we've got my guy Gary Compton, who's been on the show. I mean, so many more, and so many people that have been in the game for so long. What has it been like being able to pick their brain on certain things, not just about the X's and O's, but about the business side of Arena Football that you may not have realized when you kind of dove into this?
Well, that was, I was going to come out initially. I got involved with the Cats and just to help out. And, things changed really fast, but they changed because things weren't adding up. And so we got through. We were determined. We rolled our sleeves up, the remaining teams, and we found a way to get the season done. And trust me, it wasn't easy. And I mean, we collaborated and changed schedules weekly, and had to add bye weeks and do this just to finish. But this original group that joined here just several months ago, in addition to our expansion team, it's a special group of owners, and with the same mission and the same goal. And so not all of them at this point know exactly how to do it. We as the Cats made some mistakes last year, but what we're prepared to do is provide the resources for them so they can avoid making those mistakes. And that speaks to the strength of AF1 and the administrative staff, and that's head by Gary and Jerry, as you said. So again, there's so much to look forward to, and we have some things that we still have to dust off, and we got to
Yeah.
finalize. We're never going to get ahead of our skis, and we're going to expect people to do the right things for the right reasons, and that starts on the field, and that permeates through every organization and the league office. So, we're going to be respectful, and we're going to be transparent, and we're going to provide a product that I think is, and the timing of which is going to be an outstanding product. And there's been great leagues and great moments in time and decades of football. I'll add, when I went to one of my first or second games, and it was brought to my attention that a player on the field, it might have been Albany's dad, played,
Yeah.
and you got a separation going on in the same organization. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's a tradition rich, but there's some special stuff going on in
Yeah.
this own world, and I'm really just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, there's so many great stories to be told like that. Like, I think there's a similar situation down in Orlando. When you think about it, it's like some of these teams have been around for 20, 30 years. Like that's a long time for any level of football, any level of sports, for some of these teams to be hanging around. So, but what you mentioned about the expansion teams, I think is so important, and one of the reasons why I think that Arena Football University in Chicago was so beneficial for those new expansion teams, or for some of those prospective teams that weren't in the league yet, to kind of pick the brains of the people or the teams that were already around and already made some of those mistakes, and being able to learn from some of those things, because every expansion team is going to make mistakes. Like, it's going to happen. No one is going to come out of the gates being perfect at everything, but being able to avoid those easy ones, that's where it's at.
Exactly. It's it's the unintended consequence. It's what happens when you turn right.
Yeah.
The pothole there. You need to get it where you make the turn, or you're going to get tired and you're going to have problems. So you got
Yeah.
to be able, to anticipate. You got to be able to project. And again, I like to refer to the unintended consequences, because there's consequences to everything, and you have to
Right.
think. I was really, really fortunate and over my career to be a longtime part of the NFL's competition committee. And so, I learned a lot about that. And so, I'm going to bring some of my experience along with that, just so we can move forward and we can be successful. And, there's so much to learn from each other. And we'll compete, and then we'll scratch and claw and fight to win championships, but we also have the respect for one another as organizations.
Yep.
We're all partners in this, and I'm honored to represent the ownership, as with the old that I got to know really well, and the new that I'm looking forward to get to know better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Between the walls, when the clock starts, your enemies, but as soon as the clock expires and you get off the field, these teams need each other. The league needs the support of everybody working together. So it's good to hear that. So you had over 20 years of head coaching experience in the go ahead.
Point. Excuse me for Trey for interrupting you, but I
Yeah.
want to the one thing that was very apparent to me, because this was my first real exposure here this past season,
Yeah.
was the respect that the players have for one another.
Mm-hmm.
Is a great deal of respect for each other, and the interaction between the players and the fans, and it's just intimate. And when you compete, and you compete correctly, respect is required, and
Yeah.
respect for yourself, respect for your opponent, and that's going to continue. It was really something that I was impressed with. And these are just people that came from other leagues, and because, mind you, this was our first experience together
Yeah.
in the season, these teams, but it's there. And it should be there because of your fan base, because you're family oriented, and you want to be that type of athlete that the youngsters look forward to being,
Right.
and modeling themselves after. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to
No,
point
you're
that out.
good.
Respect
Please.
it's important to me, and it's important to this league.
Yeah, please interrupt anytime, anytime at all. But yeah, I think speaking on that before we dive into the next question, like some of these players that are in AF1 this upcoming season, they've been playing arena and indoor football for a little while now. Like they've been playing for an extended period of time, and so a lot of these players have played with each other and against each other for 4, 5, 6 years at some point. So it's like that's where some of that respect comes from, where it's these like some teams have more rookies than others, but some of these teams they have veterans who have been around for a while. So it's good to see some of that respect kind of transcend, and you're able to see it from your perspective.
The veteran players that have been in this game for a while are really good at this game.
Yeah.
And that's why the younger guys respect it, because
Yeah.
they know how to get things, they know how to create situations where, I mean, you can come from 12 points behind with 12 seconds left to go in the game.
Yeah, in regulation. Yeah.
Regulation.
Yeah.
And it's vets. The vets know how to do that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an entirely different game. I've spoken to a variety of different players on the show, and it's interesting to hear it from a running back's perspective, hear it from a wide receiver's perspective. There's just little intricacies where you pick up on it, and you can really adapt to this game very, very well from that outdoor game. So you had over 20 years of coaching experience in the NFL, and you mentioned the experience on the competition committee. I've seen you mention in some interviews that you knew about arena football during this time, but do you remember your very first exposure to it? Like, do you remember going to a game for the first time, or the first time it was on your radar?
Well, I never went to a game personally, attended a game. That's where rolling here. You just didn't have time.
Yeah.
There's no excuse other than that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They were practicing, in the indoor, and, and our owner purchased the team, and, Tim McGraw got involved. And so, you're curiously, I'd walk down the halls sometimes late at night, and, I'd see a coach or two, that were in the facility doing stuff. And that was fine there, once our owner purchased, when Bud purchased the Cats. But, on that, no, I hadn't attended a game. And, the first game I attended in person was this year, and it was at Albany.
Wow.
And then it just got better after that. And so
yeah,
I really, I'm hooked. And so, it was just, I just didn't have the opportunity. You just didn't have the time. But I have had the opportunity as of late to talk to a lot of people that were there for, the inaugural game here in Nashville. In particular, our I won't mention the name, but our Titans team physician, caught the first ball that went into the stands in the inaugural game and gave it to his kids.
Oh, that's incredible.
Have kids, and they're bringing their kids. So, we talk about the player and the generations. There's a generational fan base here as well. And so, it was just it's really fun to close the gap, to accelerate in present here, and just kind of try to experience what those memories that everybody had back then, and relive them again.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I have arena football so near and dear to my heart, because I went to games growing up with my father. I'm from Orlando, Florida, so I went to Orlando Predators games growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I remember those games. I remember those moments. I remember the lights going out, Welcome to the Jungle playing, the players running out, the spark. It's a spectacle. And when it's done right, there's nothing like it. What was Go ahead. No, I was going to say, what were some of the things that surprised you the most about arena football as you learned about it more throughout this year?
Well, the rules, that we were kind of, as we got into it, I don't think, and that was one of the flags I think that went up initially, was there was just weren't specific. And we were grab bag, and, and then everything kind of happened at once. And so, as I got more and more involved, I was working with officiating, and making sure that officials were set up and covered, and, compensated. And, you bring up the officiating, for example. I'm told that currently in the NFL, over 50% of the referees, the white hats,
Hmm.
had some kind of experience in the arena football world, and they
Really?
loved
Huh.
and they love and so a lot of I spoke with a lot of officials this year, and from the different conferences and so on and so forth, and they all said it's really good experience. The game is so fast, it makes them become very, very disciplined with their eyes, and
Yeah.
and then once they get into the back under the 11 on 11, the game slows down a little bit for them. And so, we're working, and the league back in the late 90s through the 2000s, the league had the NFL, by that I mean they had a good relationship with arena football. And so I want to
Yeah.
re I want to reposition that relationship and reestablish that, and because it's it goes beyond the owners and the players, and it's all inclusive, but officiating is something that's very, very important to me. And
Yeah.
I don't I have a hard time driving down the highway, or through communities, and seeing 11 on 11 game out there, and the little rascals in pads, and there's one official.
Yeah.
You know, I just think, I have such great respect. So I want to do as much as I want to do for, arena football. I also want to help officiating, and because it's a good deal for both. And so I want to
Yeah.
upgrade that. And again, our front office has done a good job establishing that foundation with the rule book, so that allow us to move forward in that area.
It's interesting to think about the league being a league of opportunity and development, not just for players, but for officials as well. Like I never thought about that until you mentioned that. Huh.
There's a lot of executives around in the NFL and pro sports that have spent time in the arena game.
Yeah.
They got their start there. I mean, it was so we want to rekindle that. That's what we
Yeah.
want to, even, organizationally, individual organizations where, create some internships, create some
Yeah.
there, and again, I got a chance to watch, as many games as I could, they were streamed, and you
Right.
know, some of the broadcasters are outstanding. I mean, we had Eli
Yeah.
Gold do our games this year. Eli Gold was the
He was good.
voice of the Crimson Tide, and so and he had gotten his starter, spent time in that world, the arena world, and so
Hmm.
there's just there's a lot of opportunity to bring this back and move forward, and go to places that this world, the 50-yard game, is not seeing.
Yeah. And it kind of going to places that the 50-yard world hasn't seen kind of is a good segue to some of the expansion teams that have come into the league this season, going from the 8 that came over from last year to the 4 that were coming in new this year. So one of the hot topics of the offseason amongst arena football fans has been that expansion, going from those 8 to the now 12. Some of the worry amongst some fans is that the expansion might be going a little too quick and repeating some of the same mistakes from the past. What can you say about the expansion process that will help alleviate some of that concern amongst those fans that are like cautiously optimistic, hoping we're not repeating some of those same mistakes?
Well, I can assure the fans that we're not going to repeat the same mistakes, because
Okay.
there's not much of a process
Yeah.
last year. So we have a process, we have experience. As I said,
Hmm.
decades of experience we have in our front office, from, creating and establishing, dispersing operation agreements, to you name it. And
Hmm.
the league is going to do its due diligence. The league is only as good as its members. And so
Yeah.
we're not going to make any mistakes. And we're also going to, as we said earlier, we're going to provide resources and help and assistance and recommendations and best practices and things like that.
Hmm.
So but we're going to also put the responsibility on them to be able to, you know, maintain their books and
Yeah.
run their business. And so, but we're going to try to provide, as many resources as we possibly can. So, as we move through the process, it started months ago, and
Hmm.
everybody that we spoke to um, on our initial phase um, was prepared to join here in 25. And so there'll be more. We've I don't want to say we've tabled a few, but for lack of better description, but there's a lot of interest out there, and we were
Right.
conscious about size. And in essence, this is AF1's first year, and so
Yeah.
we're going to make sure it's successful. In any of these types of alternate leagues, been my experience, the biggest problem they have, and you have to meet it head on, is travel.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest expense. And I could list some other expenses, workman comp and things like that, but the travel expense can be potentially crippling if you're not careful. We have 3 divisions, and we're mindful of that, and the travel and everything going into this. I saw it happen in other leagues that I was associated with. So that is, makes sense to have 12 and 3 divisions and set up the way they are. So we
Right.
can the travel expenses for them. But there are, based on the exercise and experience that we went through over the last couple of months, um, there's really no reason why this league doesn't grow considerably next year. We're going to handle our end of it, and they'll be knocking the door down to try to get in and be a part of it.
We like the sound of that. So speaking on growth, what are some goals for the league, not just for 2025, but like in 5 years? What would be like what is a goal that you have for the league? Like in 10 years, what is something you have in mind that would be something that you would want the league to grow into?
Well, that's a good question. It's a hard question, but there's a big
Yeah.
picture, and that's what we're talking about, the big picture.
Yeah.
You want to have an international component. You want to dream big. You want to get out there big, and so we'll work at that. We've already started that process, and so
Hmm.
and then of course your broadcast agreement, all your national sponsors, and right now we're in this age of technology where you just don't have 3 networks on television anymore. You can go
No.
watch whatever you want when you want to watch it and stream it, and so the game itself, the availability is there. We can get into households, we can get onto devices, and we can do all that. So I'd say grow regionally, grow internationally, but grow wisely. You could even have two different tiers of leagues, and so
Yeah.
there's just a lot out there, and then you want to develop relationships, but much better relationships, as I mentioned earlier, with the NFL and other entities, and there's an international component, like I said, that's awfully intriguing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw that with Monterey coming in next year. We saw some hints at some other things possibly happen down the line. So the growth is very exciting to see, and but responsible growth. Not trying to get too big too fast. Make sure it's scalable. It sounds like we've got some good processes in place heading into 2025 to make sure that all that stuff is done the right way. But I really appreciate the time today. There's still a lot of work ahead for the league, like we talked about, and the teams for that matter. What can fans look forward to over the next couple of months as we inch closer and closer to the kickoff of that 2025 inaugural season?
Well, a couple of things that we got a couple of franchises still that have not hired head coaches yet. Nashville
Hmm.
being one of them, and we have some work to do here in Nashville. I'll get right to the point.
Yeah.
The fans are going to hear about good stuff going on here in Nashville, and Nashville's going to have a team. I'll stand behind that. We have some work to do right now, and we're much closer than I think people think. So those are things to look forward to. From a scheduling standpoint, we'll be able to get very specific as to kickoff times and times that, days on the weekends and things like that. That's all obviously heavily dependent on, network relationships, which we have.
Right.
But so there's some work to get done there. And then, we want everybody out there to know who's playing where and the behind the scenes stuff and all those things that help with that, the fan interaction and the intimacy that we're talking about. So, it's going to be here before we know it. I'm going to be making the rounds. I think, potentially over the holidays and immediately after, as we get closer to the season, we'll have some great training camp reports and, some updates. And, I just think that, nothing happens overnight. But we're going to have enough information spread out over time to where we're going to keep people's interest, and there's going to be a wow factor once we start this season.
Well, I'm excited for the season to start. I'm excited for all these announcements. I'm excited to see the pieces fall into place. I'm just excited. What can I say? So thank you again so much for joining the show. Hopefully we can get you back on when we have a little bit more time, dive into some other things in the future. But I know you're a busy man, so really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today.
Trey, thanks for the opportunity, and I'm here. If you need me, get me on. I'll answer anything you can throw at me. So, and again, I appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate your passion for this game, and appreciate you being a vehicle by which we can get information out to this great fan base.
Absolutely. I'm happy to play my part in this community. So thank you so much. We'll be in touch. Okay.
Okay. Appreciate it.
All right. So that was Commissioner Fisher of the AF1. Again, massive thank you again to him for joining the show and diving into some of the work that's gone into Arena Football 1 so far. Like I said, there's a lot of work still to be done. I know for a fact the league has had a lot of lessons learned in this offseason. It'll take some time to work out the kinks as we head into 2025 and in that inaugural season. But while we get our next guest situated, folks in the chat, what matchups are you most excited about? The schedule just got released an hour ago at around 7:30, an hour and a half ago now. What matchups stand out to you? Which ones are you most excited about? Personally, I'm really looking forward to some of the regional rivalries that are going to develop within these divisions. But are there any specific matchups that stick out to y'all? So let me know in the comments which two. I know some matchups we're getting multiple times, 3 times. So let me know which one stands out to you. All right, getting our next guest situated now. All right, let me make sure we're good to go. Jacob, any and all? That guy loves himself some arena football. Let's go. AFC arena football coverage. Love that guy. Go follow him on Instagram if you don't already. That Outlaws Firebirds Championship rematch is going to be delightful. Bandits Wolfpack is going to be fun as well. So I think our next guest is ready to roll. We'll get him in here right now. Let's see if I can work this. Here we go. All right, I think I did it.
How are we doing, Trey?
Oh, Adam, we're surviving, thriving. You've had a long day. You've had a long week. You've had a long month. I appreciate you.
Don't talk to me about a long day here.
So, for those watching, this face may look familiar. He was on the schedule release show earlier today, talking through most of the schedule for AF1 heading into next year. He is the director of communications for Arena Football 1, is none other than Adam Pelletier. Please tell me I got that last name right.
Yep, you nailed it. Adam Pelletier.
Let's go. So let's go. I was rehearsing it in the mirror. I was like, don't mess this up. That would be embarrassing. Please don't mess this up. But
you nailed it. I wouldn't expect anything less from a pro like you, Trey.
Let's go. So for those that don't know, what exactly does the director of communications do? Like, what does the day in the life look like?
What don't I do in a given day? So first and foremost, as with many of us in AF1, this is not my primary job. This is a side hustle. This is a side passion. I wouldn't even say side hustle. This is a passion. This is a passion project for me, as it is with so many of us. We love arena football. We love the game, and we really want to see this be successful. But for so I have to work not even a 9 to 5. I have to work a 6. I have to work a 6 to 4, depending on the day. But my day usually starts at about 5 a.m. getting up. Before I'm even out of bed, I'm usually checking social media. I'm checking Discord conversations. So if you're in any of the arena football Discords out there, you might see me in some of them. I'll occasionally chime in. And I will occasionally mess with folks using the spoiler feature in Discord. It's one of my favorite things that I've discovered. For those of you who don't know, it hides the text. And so one of my the jokes I play in one of the Discord is I'll post, what announcement I'm super excited for. And then I spoiler the answer, and the answer is usually, did you really think I just announced this in a Discord?
He's a professional, folks.
I'm a professional. We got to get some excitement out of it, with the changing in the trends and how people are engaging. It's really important that we're meeting our fans where they are on social media, in Discord, on Reddit, and so after checking that, getting to the day job, usually either the night before or first thing that morning when I get up, I'm prepping the transactions post. So we get that up, depending on what happens in a given day. That's why those come out at varying times, is because sometimes I get a little delayed in my day. It's scheduling social posts. It's communicating news on the back end. It's keeping things connected. Talking with Jeff Fisher, Jerry Kurz, Gary Compton, Tracy Linen, Christy McEwen, owners, coaches, players, talking with a wide variety of folks on a daily basis, phone calls throughout the day, just kind of coordinating, talking about, what appearances do we have? What events do we have? Am I writing some content? Am I creating some things? The content's been a little slow to start here because we didn't have, we wanted to give everybody time. If we started talking about a lot of stuff right off the rip, we'd be beating some stuff to death already. And so we wanted to wait to really start to ramp up our content until we had the schedule in front of folks. And as things and as a lot of folks have talked about throughout tonight, we're very excited to see how things continue to progress over the coming days and weeks. We have a lot of announcements in the can, and we have a lot of partnerships that we're excited to announce. We have a lot of things that are getting ready to come out. We just wanted to wait. To us, a schedule was super important. We want our fans to know when the games are going to be. Start making your plans. We know we have fans nationwide who are ready to travel. I know now that I have a schedule, I'm starting to plan some travel as well, because I love going to an arena football game. I was only able to go to one last year. I had a very busy year last year, but going to that Albany-Orlando game was just a special experience. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to visit more of our amazing teams this year. I'm very excited to go spend a game with Sean Knapp and John Chaney down in Orlando. I'm looking forward to my first jungle experience down there. I'm very excited for the first trip to the Pizza Box out in Salina. Excited to head down to Corpus Christi, hopefully at some point, and see that great, love the Gulf Coast. I've been to the Mississippi and Alabama Gulf Coast region, never the Texas Gulf Coast. So excited to be down there. Excited to go to Oregon, excited to go to Washington. Just, my goal is to make it to as many games as possible this year. And some of that's going to be just timing, and just balancing that. But I will watch. I love watching arena football. I go back and watch old games on YouTube.
Same.
Trey, you and I are one and the same there. I know last week I decided I was going to commit to finding and working backwards from the oldest arena games I could find on YouTube and just work my way to the present and see how long that takes me. And let
Good
me
luck.
just tell you, there were some interesting things. I was watching, it was a Denver Dynamite Chicago Bruisers game. And for those of y'all who don't know, early on in arena football, there were actual sidelines on some of the fields. So I text Jerry Kurz because I have, having a man with encyclopedic knowledge of the game, just asking like, hey, when did sidelines go away? He was like, oh, that was, and he tells me the story of why there were sidelines in Chicago. And it's really great. And it just really speaks to the history of this game and, the passion of arena football fans. So, and that's a roundabout way to kind of meander off of the topic of what does the day in the life of the director of communications look like? It depends on the given day. It depends on what thing has happened that day. It depends on what teams have announced. It depends on what players have signed. It varies on a day-to-day basis. And as the year continues to go on, now that we have a schedule, as signings continue to ramp up, you're really going to see our content start to take its next steps.
Well, we've had some conversations about how AF1 is one to do things in a new, fresh way. And I think tonight is a perfect example of that, being able to partner with some of the independent media to expand the schedule release beyond just a tweet or an Instagram post saying, hey, here's the schedule. Like it's much more interactive. It's much more like you're including the fans and the passionate people who make up the community in the announcement.
I mean, that's it, Trey. I mean, without fans, I don't get to do this. Like I could still talk about arena football, but I wouldn't have all these folks ready to listen. I wouldn't have folks excited about the game. Without the fans, we got nothing. We want to put our fans first and foremost. And we understand that there's challenges that arena football has to overcome. There's history, some of that isn't necessarily on us. That wasn't our league. Hold on 1 second. Some things I also got to do. I got to make sure everybody shows up to their interviews at their appropriate time. So give me just
you're good.
Moment. Somebody missed it. So this is the fun and excitement. I'm doing one thing, and then all of a sudden I have to put out another fire.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, there's just so much potential in this social media age that we're in to do things in a fresh, creative way, and just being willing to embrace it, and being willing to take a chance, and being willing to do something that might fall flat, but it might also be a home run at the same time, right?
And I think the big thing with this is we're starting fresh. This isn't an attempt to rebrand something. This isn't an attempt to build off of past history. We're trying to start fresh. We want a fresh start. We want a fresh roll, and we want to get up and go on our own. We want Arena Football 1 to be its own thing. We don't want to try to stand on the shoulders of something past. We're here to be our own brand. We're here to build this legacy. It's why we structured the league differently. It's why we've done things deliberately. It's why we're doing things with openness and transparency. I've seen a lot of people talk about, well, screenshot this schedule because it's going to change. And we tried to build in to be transparent that we understand there's going to be some change in the schedule. We have some ranges right now because we have to work with broadcast partners. We have to work with changing event schedules. There are some things that need to be worked out still, but we're committed to keeping this schedule in place and whole as much as possible. And the 50-yard game, it's a tumultuous game at times. I mean, we had Monteray and Stockton, two teams that we were super excited for. They just needed to make sure that they were able to meet the expectations of themselves in the league for 2025. So they had to push to 2026. And we're very excited about those markets. We're very excited about those teams and their leadership still. It's just, sometimes things happen. And, we want to make sure that we're delivering that high quality product. We'd rather make sure we're getting it right with as much transparency as we're able to give. When we want to give as much transparency as we're able to give. I mean, that's it. We understand that there's broken trust in the 50-yard game. There's backdoor deals. There's shady things that have happened in the past. And our goal is to put as much as we're able to into the light and be open and honest about what our processes look like.
Yeah, and it's a frustrating thing to like. The arena football fan community is great, but there are the vocal minority of folks that are just can be a little toxic at times, if we're just being honest. So like building on the Monteray Stockton thing, like you mentioned, in years past, prior regimes might have tried to press on and been like, no, they're playing. And we saw the result of that. So I think it's a step in the right direction that, hey, they're not ready. We're coming out and saying they're not ready. They know they're not ready. I think that's a step in the right direction. Like I don't understand where some of that's coming from, but hey, they do that.
Again, it goes back to there's broken trust in the 50-yard game. Other leagues have broken that trust, and whether we were directly or indirectly responsible doesn't matter. We play the 50-yard game, so we have to answer for past failures, for past challenges, and we're trying to answer that bell day in and day out as much as we're able to. So, we're very excited. We have some markets. We have some markets like Oregon. We have some markets like Corpus Christi coming in. We have an Oregon team that has some new ownership joining an experienced coach like Chuck Jones. So that's going to be really great to see in Oregon, Bend, Oregon. Maybe it's going to be an exciting arena to play in. It's a small town. We have a mix of markets and venues. You're looking at Corpus Christi. Somebody was established in another league, now coming over to play arena football, joining, a tough division there with teams like Salina and Southwest Kansas and an emergent Wichita team. What I'm most excited for is seeing a lot of our teams who last year, were in their first year playing arena football, now coming into year 2 and getting a chance to really figure their games out and figure their team identities out. One of my best examples of this is Wichita and Washington. Wichita really, came on at the end of last year with the addition of Ed Crouch and the emergence of Akil Greer to go with what was a strong defensive secondary throughout times. And I think that that's really going to be a team I'm excited to watch. I mean, Akil Greer, big, physical, speedy receiver. I can't sing his praises enough. And he's a remarkable young man who I've gotten to know now over the past couple of years. We actually met when he was signed by another league. So seeing him get another chance here in arena football to continue pursuing that dream. He's a kid who played at St. Aug's, a small HBCU in Raleigh, North Carolina. A school that maybe didn't have the best resources, didn't have the best facilities. And now he's going to have a chance to play on the big stage of arena football and continue to showcase his talents. Yeah. And I think really emerge as a dominant force in this game. If he's going to get a chance at the 100-yard game. He deserves that chance at the 100-yard game with his physicality, his catch radius. And I'm very excited to watch him progress this year and take those steps and try to get that chance, but also become a household name in the 50-yard game. And Ed Crouch, the same thing. Ed Crouch last year started off in Orlando and then kind of bounced around a little bit before ending up in Wichita. And he really started to emerge over the last couple games. And then we look at a team like Washington, who really said we need to go out and bring in a quarterback.
Some veterans of the arena game.
Some veterans. Yeah. Joseph Hess is a great addition for them. Hess has had some experiences before. Very excited to see him rock and roll this year in with a full season with a guy like Otis Odom, who can just absolutely – he's a guy you can build around. He's a guy who can make moves in the lateral, as I talked with Carrie a little bit, bridge that outdoor style to the indoor style.
Yeah, so touching on the schedule that was released tonight, you went at length on it on the Arena Football 1 stream earlier today, but you touched on some of the matchups that you're excited about. What are your thoughts on the triple round robin? I think it makes a ton of sense for the divisions. I think we're going to have a clear emergence of all right, these teams are going to be the division champions. I like how they have it set up. And I also like that the travel, which Commissioner Fisher mentioned is a killer for a lot of teams, is greatly reduced with how some of these divisions are made up. So what are your thoughts on how the divisions are split up?
So I think the biggest thing is, is it going to be an NFL style? It's hard to have an NFL style schedule where you're only going to play your division twice, where you're going to do all this traveling and all of these things. It's just, it's hard because you have to balance the realities of the 50-yard game with competitiveness. And like you talked about, would it be great if we could have them travel all across the country and do all these things? Yes. However, we have to balance that fiscal responsibility to make sure that we keep it on track and make sure that this league isn't just here for 2025, but here in 2035. So we really want to make sure that that's our goal. We're building this not just for this year, but for the long term as well. And so with that being said, the pod, the four team divisions and playing the triple header against your divisional opponents, it's going to lead to some very strong rivalries. And I think that this is something that as we think about the long term, we're going to love to see, because you're going to get teams like Wichita and Salina, Wichita and Corpus Christi, Wilkes-Barre and Albany that are going to play 3 times in a year. And that's going to establish a real passion for beating the brakes off the guys up I-87 or for the Predators to go into Albany. And I think that passion in the fan bases is really going to come through. And I'm excited to see how these rivalries kind of get jump-started this year, to the point where as our league evolves, as our league grows, as divisions will change alignment, we'll see those rivalries carry over. Will we end up with a South Division where Orlando and Albany don't play multiple times a year and we just have them in a one-off where it's something that we're all circling, like the Albany Billings game? Will Arizona end up in a different division away from Billings where we got to circle the hat throwdown between the Bandits and the Outlaws? Name's still in progress. I love a good nickname. Anyone will tell you.
We're taking name suggestions in the comments. Drop some name suggestions for these rivalries.
Taking any name suggestions, any questions in the comments. Sorry to step on Trey's toes, but if y'all want to ask any questions, please fire away. I will be as open and transparent as I am able to be without having to worry about Jerry Kurz come and knock down my door.
I can hear your phone buzzing already. Yeah. So some things that stood out to me with the schedule after watching the release show, Billings, the reigning champions of arena football, not getting a home game till week 6. I understand arena availability is one thing, but we can't even get them an opening week home game. Like, what happened?
I wish I could kid you. When the show had not sooner ended than I had text messages from Cedric Walker and Steve Titus talking about that I was still disrespecting them after the infamous tier 3 comments from last year, which I would like everybody to remember. I was not party to that. That was some colleagues of mine, but I definitely didn't discourage them from saying it. And, in some way that sparked Billings to a championship last year. So kudos to Billings for a championship, very well fought. And, if I know one thing, if you give Cedric Walker motivation, you're just adding fuel to an already raging fire of competitiveness. So I think that's going to be great. I mean, the last thing we really needed to do was give Billings a chip on their shoulder. Yeah. And we did. So now we're going to see where they go with that one.
They're about to run it back on us. Yeah. I mean, I think there's 2 ways to look at it. Do they not get a home game till week 6? Yes. But the majority of their final 8 weeks of the season it's going to be a homestand for the greater majority of that heading into the playoffs. Like, that could work out in their favor, especially with that veteran coaching staff that they got there.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Ced Walker. I mean, he's just a spectacular coach. He's really, he was established in the arena game, and we joke that, defense is hard to come by in arena because it is. However, what I can tell you is that the stops are what matters most. and Ced Walker knows how to get stops out of his defensive secondary.
Right.
And his defenses are going to get the stops, and they're going to make the plays, and they're going to break the offensive game plan. I mean, it comes down to, can you get 2 or 3 stops? If you can get 2 or 3 stops, you're in spectacular shape in arena football. And offensively, they've got some pieces coming back. And if there's one thing I know about Cedric Walker, it's that I don't know who the superstars are going to be on his team yet, because he will take them and he will coach them up.
Yeah. That was something we talked about when he was on the show a few weeks back, is like, I don't need the biggest names in arena football. I don't need the veterans. I need guys that are willing to buy into what we're trying to do. I need guys that we can mold to fit what we need as a team. And I think last year's Billings team is a perfect example of that, where they were able to get this raw talent and mold them to what they needed to be a championship caliber arena football team, which is exactly what they were. But speaking on some of the rivalries that you talked about playing each other 3 times is going to develop some of these rivalries. Not only are they playing each other 3 times throughout this schedule, a lot of folks are playing each other back-to-back weeks. So I think that we're going to see a lot of that, where it's like week 1, somebody didn't appreciate how you put somebody into the wall. Week 2, they might have something to say about it. I think we're going to see a ton of that.
Yeah, and I think that some of that, and that's going to be interesting to see. Again, this is all just, we don't know what this is going to look like. We won't know because, it's a new and unique schedule. We're going to see how this all shakes out. We're going to see how teams react on the back-to-back weeks. And, there's going to be a lot of really good games. There's going to be a lot of hard-fought games. I mean, Can you imagine if Albany and Orlando play each other in back-to-back weeks? That's just insane. Like,
that's nuts to think about.
That's a game. That's a rivalry where there's some hard-fought battles there, and there's ferocious competitors on both sides of the field, of the owners' boxes, of everything. And I can tell you right now, those are great games to be at, and those are great people to be around as well.
Yeah, if you thought the chippiness from last year when the games were separated by 7 or 8 weeks, imagine them being separated by 5 or 6 days. Like, that's going to be an absolute scene for Orlando and Albany.
Of course. So I mean, Trey, just or chat, who's ever here, what questions do y'all have? I mean, what can I try to answer for you as we're getting ready for, just for more things to keep happening?
Yeah, Chad, if you have something, now's the time. This is the venue for it. This is the avenue for it. So throw it in there. We'll throw it on the screen, and we'll see what we can get. See how much trouble we can get Adam in. That's the goal with this. But until we get some of those, we got a few things here. So something else that stood out to me with the scheduling was Oregon. It doesn't look like they have any division game, or they have all division games up until week 10. So they're going to have the same 3 opponents for the first 9 weeks of the season. How do you think that's going to work out? Do you think that's going to be something that works in Oregon's favor or not?
I think that's going to be something that works in Chuck Jones' favor. I mean, Chuck Jones is a good coach. He was doing well with his team before they folded last year. And I think that there's going to be he's going to have a high degree of familiarity with Washington, who he coached against last year, and with Billings, who he coached against at times last year as well. So I think that's going to be good. I'm excited to see how they continue to build that squad out. They brought over, they have an arena rookie this year as their quarterback. But he is experienced in the German league. I mean, and I don't know if y'all have ever watched some GFL Nord football, but let me tell you, that is some good football being played over there at times.
There's some ball players over there.
Really interesting to see how and I'm very interested to see how some of those players like Keegan transfer to the 50-yard game. I mean, it's going to be challenging, but, it worked for him last year with Connor Kagi at quarterback. So bringing over Keegan this year is going to be interesting to see if he can do it again with another German bounce back to America.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to deep dive the schedule a little bit more. And obviously strength of schedule is going to be something that's very up in the air until closer to kickoff. But man,
Trey, we can talk about a strength of schedule on the start of the season, but just like last year, we won't know what the strength of schedule is until week 14. We might not
Yeah.
even know until the championship game. We won't know
Yeah.
what strength of schedule looked like until the end of next year.
Right.
I mean, because we don't know. We don't know how these teams are going to evolve. I mean, we have some great coaches in here. We have some great fundamentally sound teaching coaches who can take a player and turn them into stars. I mean, you look at what Cedric Walker did. You look at what Gary Thomas did in his first year in the 50-yard game. You know, took him a little bit to figure it out, and he fought, you know, and then he got Matt Struck rolling. I'm excited to see the steps that Matt Struck takes in year 2. I'm excited to see EJ Burt take his second year leap as a head coach. Damon Ware, of course, is Damon Ware in Albany. I'm excited to see Wilkes-Barre and Nashville's coaches continue to take, you know, once they get announced. Excited to hear everybody talk about them. There's just a lot of great coaches. There's a lot of great players. And I'm excited to see these coaches and players continue to take their steps. You know, you have newer coaches like Clint Solomon in Wichita. You know, you have Arizona set to make a coaching announcement in the near future as well. You have J.R. Wells in Washington. And then you have some veterans like Haran O'Neal, Ced Walker, Damon Ware, E.J. Burt. You know, there's a good balance of new and experienced coaches. And when you take all of that, I have to take this call real quick. I will be right back.
No problem. You do what you got to do. So, as Adam said, strength of schedule is something where it's very up in the air. Because if you would have said who are the top 3 or 4 teams in week 1 of the 2024 season, you would have gotten team 1, team 2, team 3. If you ask that question, even in week 5 and week 6, maybe one of those will still be up in that top 4. So it really comes down to what type of roster turnover we're looking at on some of these teams, what the development looks like, because it's going to be a longer season this year than it was in 2024. So going from that 10-game season to a 12-game season stretched over 14 weeks, I think we're going to see some extremely high-quality football down the stretch heading into the playoffs, because we're going to have even more time for some of these players to get into a groove and to get comfortable in the arena game. Because as Commissioner Fisher mentioned earlier, some of the veterans of arena football, they've learned, hey, let me hit this route at this angle. Let me use this wall to my advantage this way. Like, they learn all these things. And some of the newer players, they learn that stuff through experience. Like they have a not so friendly encounter with the wall once or twice, and they say, you know what, I'm going to do this instead next time, and they learn from it. So yeah, I think the strength of schedule thing is an interesting conversation. But the reason why I brought that up, Adam, was because Salina's non-division schedule is brutal. It's Albany, at Billings, and at Oregon. You can make the case that those 3 teams, the non-division teams that they face, could be in the top half of the league when it's all said and done.
They could be. And I think the thing that I'm interested to see is how Javon Kilgo bounces back in Salina. You know, he spent last year with with the Duke City Gladiators. So he's coming back to the arena game now from the indoor game. 50-yard games are similar, but some subtle differences. I'm interested to see how he makes this transition back to the arena game and back to Salina, especially with the team that Coach O'Neal is building around him there in Salina. Tracy Brooks being back is huge. You know, and just how Salina was able to evolve and win games in multiple ways last year. I think that was one of the things that impressed me most with both them and Southwest Kansas, because they were teams that initially we thought were maybe running too much of the indoor style, if we're going to call it that.
Right.
But,
yeah.
You know, when you looked at it, it's the next evolution of the arena game and the 50-yard game is using that lateral movement. You know, you see, you know, an almost high motion man on the NFL field now at times. You know, you see them using jet sweep. You see them using those actions beforehand. So now those arena elements, why wouldn't you bring those into the arena? And additionally, just how are you going to work things like leverage, you know, with the Mac and the Jack, And I think that a guy like Tracy Brooks really opens things up for your offense, because as a former running back, he has that ability to work in space, but also he's a spectacular route runner. He does a great job working his way open.
Right.
And I'm really curious, if he doesn't get hurt before that Albany game, how does that game change?
Yeah.
And I think there could be some changes there this year as Salina's getting ready. So I think that they're going to be very ready for this. I think that they've tweaked the roster a little bit. Coach O'Neill's going to have the guys ready, and I think they're going to be ready to rise to that challenge, but they can't look past their divisional schedule, because Southwest Kansas was right there with them last year, one play away almost. There was a hot minute where we thought Southwest Kansas pulled off the all-time Cal band play to win the playoff game.
That was close.
And now back again. Matt Struck in year 2, Gary Thomas in year 2. I'm very excited to see what they do in Southwest Kansas. There's going to be a lot of great things there. So some of the non-divisional schedules are going to lead to some interesting things. And we have some emerging rivalries. The Albany-Billings rivalry is something I'm super excited for, because I can't think of two more passionate coaches, two more passionate ownership groups, and two more passionate fan bases to have go back and forth. And really, we have the East Coast, Midwest kind of battle there, not even like North Country battle. And it's great to see, and it's exciting to see. And it's just an atmosphere that's going to be unmatched in sports.
Yeah. And going back to Salina real quick, Salina had some real standout players on defense too. And I think they get overlooked. Henry Kellogg, defensive end, he had 7 sacks against Washington in a single game. At any level, 7 sacks is incredible. You had Freddie McGee, Defensive Player of the Year. You had Kerry Starks, who got hurt early, but he's going to make a difference for this Salina team. So that Salina roster, it's looking good, and they're going to make some noise.
Definitely. I'm excited to see how they do that, and I'm excited to see how Coach O'Neill works to have his team ready to play in multiple ways, because I forgot to finish. I got going. This is what happens. I get going down a rabbit hole, and I'm never going to stop. Because both Southwest Kansas and Salina showed an ability at multiple times last year to not only move laterally, but vertically. And that was one of my biggest questions for them when we were watching them in the middle of last year, was how are they going to take this vertical passing attack, and can they stretch the field? Can they score 50? That was a question, and they proved that they could score 50 easily. 50 for me is that number. You have to, if you want to be an elite team, you have to have the ability to score 50. You don't have to do it every game, but you need to show that you can put 50 up, and it's not a huge stretch, and it's not a huge lift. And both of them showed that. Southwest Kansas did in a shootout with West Texas, and Salina was toe-to-toe with Albany for the better part of that playoff game until Albany just pulled away late.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to at least threaten 50 is something that's needed. So we did have a couple questions come in.
Love it.
See what we got here. We got Matthew. When can we expect a Wilkes-Barre name? So Adam, go ahead. Get yourself into some trouble here.
I'm not going to get myself into any trouble, because I can tell you right now, Matt Rowland in Wilkes-Barre is doing things the right way. He is passionate sports executive. He's an experienced sports executive, and he is excited to bring arena football back to Wilkes-Barre, and he wants to make sure he does it right, and he wants to make sure that this team belongs to that community. So it's very important to him to have the naming the team contest. I know that now that he's on finalizing his front office and his coaching staff, we're going to see that start to move quickly here. I would stay tuned for that, and I would expect some movement on that very quickly. So a name announcement might not be coming soon, but I think the name the team contest is going to get here pretty quick, and I would be excited to see where that goes. And I'm excited to see that Wilkes-Barre team on the field, because if they are anything like their owner, they are going to be tenacious, they are going to be prepared, and they are going to give you one hell of a game every time you step between those walls.
Yeah, the boxing promoting background of Matt in the conversations I've had with him, it shows. Like he's very fiery. He gets fired up very easily. So we have another question from Matthew here. Uniforms and uniform providers, are those going to be the same as last year? Do you have anything we can tease or touch on here?
I can tease that we have some decisions that are going to be made in the coming days, and I would expect announcements to follow shortly thereafter. Okay. We had a lot of good conversations with multiple providers. We've had a lot of really good conversations with multiple partners for everything this year. We've looked at everything over the past couple weeks and months, since that initial meeting in early September. It's really been off to the races. And I know everybody's thinking, well, it's November. Where's everything been? Yo, we starting from scratch here. We starting from scratch, and we trying to move mountains here.
Yeah.
And we are getting ready. And again, like we talked about, I just want to reiterate, we understand that there's broken trust in the 50-yard game.
Right.
How it was broken, how we got to this point. There are a lot of ways we got here. But you know what? If we just dwell in the past with that broken trust, then our game's never going to thrive. And I say our game because our game belongs to the fans. When this game was invented, it was really driven towards providing a fan-friendly experience. As Jerry Kurz always likes to say, you can take the ball home, but you got to return the player. We want to put the fans first. We want to put our fans first, second, and third. And our players are going to be right there first, second, and third. We're putting them all together. So it's just, we're excited to have this opportunity to rebuild this trust. We're excited to have an amazing community of fans who care so much. People are they're kind of crazy, aren't they? And I'm like, yeah, they are. Isn't it great?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's so much. What other fan base goes so deep into trying to know as much as they can, as many things as they can, and just the resourcefulness, and some of it gets a little crazy sometimes, but you know what? We good with it because folks turn out for games. We're excited. We're excited that having a consistent schedule this year is really going to provide a ton of opportunities for our fans. And we're excited. We're just excited. I know I keep saying excited, but I can't come up with a better word because I'm like a kid in a candy store here. We released our schedule. We're talking about games. We're coming to the end of the silly season, as I call it, and we're going to start talking about football because that's all I want to do. I want to talk about things like where the quarterback and the receiver realize there's a gap in the defense and they take the top off of it. I want to talk about how D. Washington is so effective, even as a veteran who maybe doesn't have the athleticism he once had, to still carve up a strong secondary like Albany. I want to talk about how Andre Sale, having an established connection with Rosario coming over from the IFL, is going to put Orlando in an incredible position. And I want to talk about how Derek Harvey's going to be another great piece there. If Orlando saw that they needed weapons last year and they said, you want weapons, I'm going to give you weapons.
Yeah,
EJ
no kidding.
Burt has done a great job putting together a team there in Orlando, just receivers top to bottom. And I can't wait to see how Arizona, Nashville, and Wilkes-Barre start to round out, because I've heard, I get to hear a lot of the buzz. And let me just say, the buzz is getting exciting. And when I talk, Arizona, I talked about Arizona a lot tonight on the stream with Jeremiah Spicer. No one sets a firmer tone than Jeremiah Spicer. Jeremiah Spicer sets the tone of, we're going to hit you hard, we're going to hit you often, and we're going to make you pay for every yard. And that attitude for Bandit Ball is something I'm very excited for.
Bandit Ball.
And what's going on in there? It's Bandit Ball.
It's Bandit Ball, Jerry.
It's Bandit Ball, Jerry. I want to credit you, Trey, for that. I think you've inspired an entire branding campaign for the Arizona Bandit meme.
When I saw them starting to lean into it in the progressing days, I'm like, yes, let's go.
I mean, and folks, it's a game. We're talking about a game. We're talking about a sport. We're gonna have some fun, y'all. We're gonna have some fun we're going to provide you entertainment. We're going to give you a show on the field, off the field, and everywhere in between. We hope that you're sticking around with us for all the criticism out there. Thank you. I read it. I read everything, y'all. Trey will tell you I read everything. I read it all. I see it all. And I ask that everybody, Trey sends me stuff that I might not have seen, and I'll see it and I'll look at it. Just because we don't respond doesn't mean we don't see it and we don't hear it. We have a lot of internal discussions about how we rebuild fans' trust in our game and how we can earn your trust. We're here to earn your trust. We're here to earn your business. And I hope that we can do that. I hope that we can continue to earn your fandom, because arena fans are some of the best fans in the world, and you deserve a league and teams that are dedicated to you. And we hope that we can be that for you. We hope that we can be a fan first league where we're providing you that experience, and we're providing players an opportunity to continue to play the game they love.
Yeah, and I think you guys are off to a good start. Like you said, it's literally building from scratch. So it's not going to be the bright, shiny toy right off the bat. Like, we'll get there, but it's going to take some time to get it to that point. So, Adam, really appreciate the time in talking through the schedule, talking through various rabbit holes that we fell down along the way. What are you most excited for over the next couple of months heading into 2025, particularly with some of the announcements that may be coming down the pike? That I'm not asking for a teaser, but if you want to throw one in there, I'm not going to be mad either. You know,
I'm excited for all the announcements that we're going to make. I'm excited for folks to see us building this the right way, getting partners who are invested in our success, as invested in our success as we are. And I'm also excited to just talk about these players and start to tell these players stories, because
there's so many great
stories.
stories.
Spectacular players. I talked about a bunch of players tonight. We're going to talk about a bunch more players over the course of this year. And I'm going to do better, because I have people like Trey and Zach Kallman who are going to make sure that I give the love to the defensive players and the offensive linemen. Because anybody who knows me will tell you, I tend to focus on the quarterbacks, the receivers, the DBs, and I love a good MAC linebacker. I love a good hard charging MAC linebacker blitzing. So the Jeremiah Spicers and the Cecil Cherries of the world are very close to my heart. So I'm very excited to continue to talk about this. I'm very excited to hear the feedback from fans, whether it's good, whether it's bad. I don't just want to hear the bad feed. I don't just want to hear the good feedback. I want to hear the bad. Tell us what you want to see. Tell us what you want to happen. And, we'll take it back. We'll put everything on the table, y'all. We'll have a conversation about it. You might not hear about it, but I can guarantee you we've had the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And closed mouths don't get fed, right? So It's something where, like, if you got something that you want to change, be the voice of change that you want to see, and let the league know.
DMs are open. If you hit me up, or if you don't want to message the league and you want to hit me up. I'll have a conversation. I'll talk to you. We can bounce back and forth. Again, we want to be open. We're going to be as open as we're able to be, and we're going to be as honest as we're able to be, and we're going to tell you as much as we're able to tell you. And we're going to let you see a lot behind the scenes. It might not be right up front, but it'll be down the line. You're going to know a lot more about what happened this year. You're going to know a lot more about our preparations for this year, because we want to set an example for the 50-yard game, because we believe that this game can be successful. We believe that this game that is going on now on its fourth decade of life, since the 1980s. I mean, that just sounds crazy to say. We're coming up on 40 years of arena football. That this game can be successful, that this game is going to be here for years and years to come. And we know that our league, with how it's being built and leaning into the strength of our teams, is going to be here for years and years to come as well.
To quote you earlier, I'm excited. I'm excited for what's to come. So thank you so much, Adam. Really appreciate the time. And I know we'll be in touch, and we'll have to get you back on maybe a little bit closer to the season kicking off. We'll talk ball.
Of course. Always looking forward to it. Have a good evening.
All right. You as well. Take care. All right, guys, that was fun. Thanks again to Commissioner Fisher. Thanks again to Adam for taking the time to hop on the show. If you don't already, please give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter /X, and TikTok at Off the Wall FB, F as in foot, B as in ball on each of those. If you're like the stream, do the subscribe thing, all the things that other people say to do that here too. Really appreciate the interaction with some of the comments. Let me just go down the list here. We got C-Dog, Jacob, Arena Football Coverage, Otis, Jordan, Steele, Matthew. Handful of questions from Matthew. Really appreciate the interaction here. This was a ton of fun. And let me know what you think of the show, of the live show versus some of the pre-recorded stuff. might do more of this in the future. I don't know. It depends on the feedback that we get. So go to the socials and let me know how this went and what your thoughts are. And there's only 24 hours in a day. The fact that you chose to spend like an hour 20, hour 30 here listening to me ask questions to Jeff Fisher, which is a crazy sentence to say out loud, and then being able to talk shop about the schedule and about AF1 with Adam is a ton of fun. So let me know what you think about all this on socials and the comments, all that stuff. But there will be a lot more information coming, not just in AF1, but other leagues over the next couple of weeks as we start to close out 2024 and head into 2025. So appreciate all the love and support so far. Take care. Have a great rest of your week. I'll see you on the socials.